I don't know if modest is hottest, but I do know that modesty is biblical, right? By that I mean that modesty means humility expressed in dress and outward behavior, originating from a heart focused on God rather than self-promotion. Modesty. In fact, it's one of the marks of the confusion of our age, that so many teenagers and young adults are more ashamed to dress with modest refrain than to almost undress entirely. Now listen, being pretty or handsome is not a sin. Neither does working to improve your appearance have to be a matter of conceit or a matter of pride. The line between modest and immodest is not always black and white. We're still left with the undeniable biblical fact that God considers modesty a virtue and immodesty a sin. Very quickly tonight, here are 5 biblical reasons Christians should embrace modesty as a God-designed, God-desired thing. Modesty, number 1, protects what is intimate. Modesty protects what is intimate. There is a certain strand of feminism which says women should be proud of their sexual prowess, and that any instance that they should cover up what they don't feel like covering up only serves to reinforce patriarchal notions that men have the right to determine what women do with their bodies. But the Bible's call to modesty is not based on the supposed naughtiness of the female form. God's good command to cover up is not meant to punish, but to protect. God's good command to cover up is not meant to punish, but to protect. As one author, female author says, the pressure on girls today to take sexy selfies comes out of a culture that routinely equates modesty with shame, instead of recognizing it for what it really is, an impulse that protects what is precious and intimate. The common refrain of the bride in Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 7, that you stir not up nor awake my love till he please. That's a very interesting verse, if you'd like to take a look at it, is a call for a chaste life before and after marriage. And she is calling there in the Song of Solomon for an accountability to the daughters of Jerusalem. The number 2, not only is modesty, it protects what is intimate, modesty accepts that our bodies also live in community. What does that mean? It means that while it sounds nice to say, it's my body, if I want to let it all hang out, then that's my business. To think that, to say that, is to forget that our bodies exist in relationship with other people. Just like our speech does, our actions, our will, and our desires. Listen, how we dress is not determined by how others wish we would dress. And yet it would be non-Christian to act as if the spiritual state of those around us was of no value or meaning whatsoever. Before going any further, let me state this as clearly as possible. Men are responsible for their adultery, for their fornication, for watching pornography, for their lust, and for, heaven forbid, sexual assault, regardless of how a woman dresses. The Bible does not prohibit modesty on either sex because the opposite sex is simply incapable of keeping its pants on and its thoughts in check. Listen, men, if Potiphar's wife were to barge in and dance a bare-bellied jig on your kitchen table and strip you down to your birthday suit, you would still not be excused in committing adultery with her. Does that make sense? The absence of modesty in one party does not justify the absence of restraint in another. And with that said, now listen, does not the law of love suggest that we should want to avoid enticing others into sin? Listen to Matthew 5:28. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. You know, some scholars, as I was studying it this evening, they suggested that the phrase to lust after her, the meaning then, instead of being about the lust in man's heart, would be about the man wanting to get a woman to lust after him. And I'd never even thought about that or even looked at it like that. I mean, whether you accept this minority position or not, it's still a fair application to think that Jesus' statement forbids us from having a hard attitude that lusts and a hard attitude that wants to be lusted after. Some people want to see pornography and others want to be pornographic, right? Or others want to be pornography. Maybe not in a literal sense, but there are men and women who crave the power, the attention, and the status that comes from being noticed and sought after. This entices others to sin and in itself sinful. And I hope that makes some sense. You know, modesty number 3 operates with what the Bible says about nudity since the fall of man. From Adam and Eve scrambling for fig leaves in Genesis 3:10 to the dishonorable nakedness of Noah. We all remember those stories in Genesis 9:21. To the embarrassingly exposed buttocks of David's men in 2 Samuel 10:4. The Bible knows we live in a fallen world in which certain aspects of our bodily selves are meant to be what? Hidden. In fact, this is exactly what Paul presumes when he speaks of our uncomely parts, or you could say our unpresentable parts, which must be treated with greater modesty. That's 1 Corinthians 12:23. There's a reason Mama called them private parts, right? So we cover them up, right? Number 4, modesty embraces the strong biblical admonition to refrain from sensuality. Sensuality is a distinguishing characteristic of the flesh. And one of the marks of the pagan world, and you can find this in Galatians 5:19, Romans 13:13, 2 Corinthians 12:21, 2 Peter 2, verse 2, and in verse 18. Does the Word give us exact instructions on where good taste falls over into sensuality? By that I mean how long skirts can be, what sort of bathing suit to wear, or whether beefy men need to run around shirtless when it's 60 degrees in Texas. I thought about tonight, just on a side note, having a bunch of pictures up here of real tight blue jeans, real skimpy bathing suits, but I said that wouldn't be good. Because some of the guys would want me to go another week with that. And so we're not going to do that, right? I'm just kidding. All right. I thought that might get you to grin a little bit. But I'm just saying, we know. Sometimes I think when we have to jump into a pair of pants, ladies, you ought to know that they're too tight. When you put on a pair of shorts and it comes up way up above your thighs and stuff, you ought to know that that's too short. We hide those parts of our body, right? If you're going to go out to the beach or something like that, wear a pair of long flowing shorts. In my mind, I cannot understand this whole concept of a two-piece or a one-piece tight bathing suit that just reveals everything about a woman's body. I just don't think Christian women can do that. Now, I know there are a lot of churches and stuff and people, they don't think anything of it. But just because we get accustomed and used to things certainly doesn't mean that it's right. And I hope you're tracking with me on that tonight. And you said, man, you're legalistic. No, I'm not. I'm trying to be biblical, right? And so anyways, all right. But surely we can agree that it's not uncommon for men and women to dress in ways which only add to the look and feel of our culture's present sensuality. I mean, today it's nothing to go to town and man, everybody's just walking around half naked. I just think that's not Christian. You can't hang a Christian plaque over that, right? All right. It just adds to the present sensuality of our age that we live in. If the word lasciviousness suggests sexual excess, we would do well to consider whether the desire behind our behavior when we dress like that is to starve this sensual beast within every one of us or to satisfy it, right? I'll just give in and I'll just show everything that I've got to show. God never intended for that to be so, all right? Number 5, modesty demonstrates to others that we have more important things to offer than good looks and sex appeal. You know the whole point of 1 Timothy 2:9 and 1 Peter 3, verses 3 through 4? It's not an absolute forbidding against trying to look nice. The prohibition is against trying so hard to look good in all the ways that are so unimportant. And that's what he's talking about. The question asked to women in these verses, and it certainly applies to men as well, is this: will you grab people's attention with hair and jewelry and sexy clothes, or will your presence in the room be unmistakable because of your Christ-like character? Immodest dress tells the world, I'm not sure I have anything more to offer than this, my body. Right? What you see is really all you get. Let me state the obvious. The Bible has no pictures. There's no inspired how-to manual for getting dressed in the morning. There are matters of culture, conscience, and context which surely come into place in this study. So I have no checklist to check off before you head out the door. But if the Bible is to be believed, this whole business of modesty is not unimportant to Christian discipleship. Our bodies have been bought with a price. Therefore, glorify God in your body, or you could say with your body. That's 1 Corinthians 6:20, which means we don't show everyone everything we might think is worth seeing. Right? And it means we won't be embarrassed to keep most private those things that are most precious. Shame is a powerful category in the Bible in our own day. The key is knowing what things we should actually be ashamed of. Let's bow for prayer.